March has ended up being a great month for film. Being a resident here in the UK, it feels like we finally got the last few 2024 premieres alongside some pretty solid new releases, and from a wide range of genres too. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to give you some very condensed thoughts on around 15 or so films that I saw this month. Starting with the long-awaited Mickey 17. After several pushbacks, Bong Joon-ho's new feature is an interesting, albeit slightly frustrating one. This is a sci-fi comedy about an expendable played by Robert Pattinson, who is quite literally a disposable member of crew on a ship that is en route to start a new colony. There are strong themes of identity, self-worth, and preservation alongside some critiques of capitalism. It all gets a bit heavy-handed, but there's plenty to chew on here. I think there are some incredible sequences in this film, some great camera work, and I think most of the cast do a fantastic job. Mark Ruffalo, however, is in a similar role to Poor Things here, and the tonal shifts of the movie don't really keep up with his performance, and I just found it a bit jarring at times. I love the ideas in this film, it's funny, it's self-aware, and what we get are interesting questions asked, but instead of interesting answers or any further depth to those questions, we usually get comedy, which is not always a bad thing, but the comedy doesn't always land. I just wanted a bit more depth, a bit more intrigue, and a more solid final act. That being said, I think it's still a fun film and especially enjoyable in IMAX, and the creatures are just adorable, so I'm going to give it a low 7. Next up is Restless, a small British revenge film about the perils of having a noisy neighbour. And in this one we follow Nikki, who is a care worker that descends into a sleep-deprived madness after a new neighbour moves in next door. It's a film full of anxiety and tension, one with a small but solid cast, but some great performances. Lindsay Marshall especially is great in the lead role here. It's a small-scale film mainly taking place in 1 or 2 houses with a handful of excursions, but there's some truly claustrophobic scenes, and I was genuinely surprised at the directions this film went. It really puts you in the shoes of Nikki, and I think it draws on interesting parallels to drug use and sleep deprivation and stress. It's a waking nightmare packed into a 90-minute runtime that wraps up perhaps a little too neatly for me. I think in the final act the tension does start to give way perhaps a little too quickly, and you can work out where it's going, but it's still worth the ride. It's one of those films that gets your heart beating and you start shifting around in your seat during certain moments. For me, it's a high 7, and I would recommend this one. I saw this at a preview screening, so this one is coming out in April, but it's definitely worth a watch. Opus is the first A24 film of the month, another cult-centric thriller in the vein of The Menu, Blink Twice, and so many more. I think you already know the story of this film well enough by the trailer. John Malkovich is the megastar here that's been hidden from the spotlight for 30 years. He calls on a handful of journalists to visit him and play them his return album. But then things get messy, and not just in terms of the plot. I think Malkovich is the only worthwhile part of this film, to be honest. The A24 polish is missing from this film, and aside from 1 or 2 fun sequences and some great music, I should say I do think the tracks Nile Rodgers wrote for this are really fun and feel oddly plausible for the situation this movie presents us with. But aside from that, there wasn't much here. I found it quite predictable. The first act of this film sets up the intrigue, but it all quickly devolves into mindless killing and long scenes of exposition that you could swap out from any cult monologue scene from any cult movie. And Ayo Edebiri is sadly just underused here in the lead role. There's not much else to add. I want to say that there's some interesting ideas in here, but it's a concept that's been done so many times. The difference here is it's just a musical flair attached. It's a low 3 for me, not worth your time, and sadly it's another one of those, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the film. Moving on to a much better time, One of Them Days is a buddy comedy set in LA with Keke Palmer and SZA in the lead roles. It has a very straightforward plot. They need to pay their rent by the end of the day, and this leads to some wild and wacky adventures where they try their hand at as many different ways of making money as possible. And it's really funny. There is so much chaos, great comic timing, and the pacing is almost perfect. The chemistry between the 2 leads here is pretty fantastic. It balances out the jokes with some great heart and depth to its characters, and has some great payoff moments as well. It genuinely is a laugh-out-loud comedy that felt both refreshing and fun. It has some slightly artificial tension built into it, and some sequences hit harder than others. There's a couple of moments where the jokes didn't quite work for me, but when the joke hits, it's a memorable one. I can't say this completely blew me away, but I had a lot of fun watching. I don't have much more to say really. I think it's an easy recommendation, one of the better comedies I've seen in a while. SZA did not disappoint in her first film role. It's another tight 90-minute runtime, highest 7 I can give here. Definitely worth a watch, definitely worth your time. Okay, so this is the first big hit of the month for me. On Falling. This is a beautifully shot, claustrophobic look at the world of a warehouse picker. Aurora is a Portuguese warehouse worker at an unspecified delivery depot in Scotland. And this film follows her life very closely. We are with her through the mundane, through the little respite she has, through the interactions with her co-workers and housemates. We go through her entire daily routine, day by day, but she struggles to survive on the wages she has, and every moment feels like it comes at the cost of something. And sometimes it's not just about the money. There's heaviness in this film. You can't escape this standout sensation of loneliness. It's a devastating film that's always on the brink of something. It's filmed with a lot of tight shots that leave little space in the frame, like the warehouse aisles she is confined to. There is bleak comedy in the variety of items that she has to select. There is the melodrama of shared housing. This is a delicately pieced together film, and as the film progresses, it becomes more desperate, more isolating, more exhausting, and it feels like the only true friend Aurora has in her life is her smartphone. It constantly feels like the world is out of focus, distant, and although she interacts with the people around her, they never feel like fulfilling or lasting interactions, as there is always a goal, a reason. The small talk gives way to something. I won't spoil the ending, but the final few scenes of this film hit really hard. I was left thinking about this one for quite a while. Its quiet hopelessness really gets under your skin. It requires some patience, but this is a high 8 and one of my favourite films of the year so far. Staying in Scotland for the next film, Last Breath, is directed by Alex Parkinson, who also made the documentary of the same name that this film is based on. And that is especially relevant because this film thrives in the details. It takes its time to really get us into the diving world and all the procedures and decisions behind each job. It is a meticulous, tense thriller that follows this true story of Chris Lemons, a diver sent to the bottom of the North Sea on a repair mission. Of course, something goes horribly wrong, and it is then a race against time to rescue him after he gets trapped and his oxygen supply runs out. It is a remarkable true story that, if you haven't seen the documentary like me, will have you googling the unfathomable situations this film presents us. This does very much feel like a film though. The underwater sections are very cinematic, claustrophobic, the deep reds of the flares always look cool. The tension isn't overwhelming here, but you do really start to wonder at times how they're going to pull certain things off. It's got great performances all round. Woody Harrelson is very comfortable here. This is a straightforward win in every department. Nothing groundbreaking, but just consistently enjoyable and another perfect 90-minute runtime. Nothing else to add. Easy recommendation from me. It's a high 7. Give this one a go. Black Bag is what I'm calling an espionage soap opera. It has a fun, flirtatious script about the difficulties of sustaining a relationship whilst you are in the spy business, and it's pretty damn good. It's slick, it's witty, with a stacked cast led by Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. There is a lot of fun to be had here. There's plenty of lie detector tests and spilling of secrets as Michael Fassbender's character George tries to find the leak. The overall plot is nothing unusual, it's very by the books, John le Carré books that is, but the back and forths between the characters here is what makes this such an enjoyable watch. The main centerpiece of the film is a dinner where George invites everyone over to try and suss out the leak. He puts some truth stuff in their food and sits back and watches the chaos unfold. Following this, he begins his investigation based on the fallout. Things get even more complicated, however, when a lot of signs point to his wife, played by Cate Blanchett, being involved in the leak. And how can you ever trust anyone when you can simply utter the phrase black bag and pretend it's a state secret? This film is having a lot of fun, and even though I'm not crazy about the way some of this is shot, there's a bit of a glossy feel to the lighting, and the plot gets a bit muddy at times, but I did really enjoy it. It's really funny, and it's really clever when it wants to be too. This month has been a real win for tight, well-paced 90-minute films. This excels in what it's trying to do. It's one of those films where it feels like the cast are having fun, and that translates really well to the screen. Another high 7 from me. The solid streak continues. And then I saw Novocaine. This is the latest film featuring Jack Quaid in a very Jack Quaid role. He plays Nate, who suffers from SEPA, which is a very rare but real-life condition that means he cannot feel pain. This film toys with the idea that he is, and I'm going to use the phrase, ordinary superhero, and a lot of the humor comes from the fact that he is an everyday man trying to save the girl of his dreams, but because he doesn't feel pain, he is able to withstand a lot of the obstacles that come from doing superhero-like things. I was surprised at how much insight we get into Nate's character during the first half of this film. It's quite an interesting and well thought out look at a life without feeling, the limitations he faces, like the fact he can't eat solid food for fear of biting off his tongue. I think it's a well-paced intro into his character, but then the movie shifts gears into the action thriller it's advertised as. The further it goes, sadly, the more generic it becomes. It is quite gruesome with some really creative deaths, but a lot of the heart and chemistry is then sadly found dead at the scene. This is a film that I was really on board with, but it did lose me the closer we got to the finale. I like Amber Midthunder's performance as Cheryl. I think she has great chemistry with Jack Quaid. Jacob Batalon is here in the role you would expect from him. Matt Walsh plays a detective that only speaks in exasperated cliches, and it's a joke that I did get quite tired of. And his character adds nothing to the story, which is the running gag I could have done without. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but it's a fun one. I'm going to give this one a low 6 out of 10. But now, this is the big one. Nija 2 is the Chinese animated film that has taken the world by storm. And at the time of writing, it's currently not just the highest grossing animated film of all time, but now the 5th highest grossing film of all time. I watched the first film before going to see this, and I have to say I was a little underwhelmed. It's really fun, the animation style is impressive, but a lot of the humor didn't land for me. But this is a film that's aimed at kids. I just wanted a bit more character development. However, the second film is an improvement in almost every way. It features a finale that is a breathtaking visual feast that is just stunning to see on the big screen. There's a lot of plot to get into here, but all you really need to know is it's a demon child coming of age story. This sequel has better jokes, better pacing, so much more character development. It's a really impressive balancing act. It doesn't totally break formula and convention, but it embraces it in ways that felt fresh to me. It has more guts than anything Pixar or Disney has done in recent years. There is a constant tension building, and it's not afraid of the dark. It delivers some really thrilling action scenes. I do recommend watching the first film to better grasp the story and some of the mythology that goes with it. It certainly makes that final act more impactful. And what a final act it is. It leans into the epic showdown that has clear influence from Avengers Endgame and Lord of the Rings. In my eyes, it truly deserves the top spot. That's a high 8 from me. Moving over to Mumbai for the next film, Sister Midnight. This misanthropic meander of a film is the funniest thing I saw this month. Its baffling, strange chaos and deadpan deliveries are nothing short of wonderful. It starts off with an arranged marriage and all the awkward baggage that comes with one. Uma is not happy, and as we watch her adjust to her new life, she ends up in increasingly unusual scenarios that are just so much fun to discover. I had absolutely no idea the direction this film was going at perhaps any point, but it's a ride I was so happy to be on. It's a hard one to describe without spoilers, but there are some surreal elements at play. It's a very lively and unpredictable tale about a woman trying to fit in. It's just as much a horror at times as it is a comedy, but it ultimately feels like something else entirely. It's not confined by any one genre. There is some great physical comedy here, some really fun editing. It has a wonderful script. It's one of my favorites of the month, and I really can't say any more without spoiling the intrigue. I don't know if this will necessarily land for everyone, but it worked wonders for me. This is an easy high 8 and definitely one worth seeking out. Flow is many things, but mainly it's the film I wanted it to be. It's been at the very top of my most anticipated list for months, and only just now did we get the theatrical release in the UK. And it was worth the wait. Flow is the animated Oscar winner of 2024, and it is a beautifully animated tale of a cat in a future with rising tides and no human race. It's a film with no human dialogue, and the version I watched didn't have the subtitles for the animals either. But for a film without dialogue, it is perhaps one of the most engrossing of the month. The animation is gorgeous. The story is the journey of a cat that ends up in a boat with various other animals, and they become a sort of dysfunctional family. just trying to survive. It's got a real sense of wonder as they travel through the remains of civilization. There is a constant, subtle threat drifting in the background of most scenes, and you don't always know what it is. The apocalypse flavor is here, but it feels unique considering we are following animals instead of humans, and there's just something wonderful about watching a cat overcoming its fear of water and learning to fish for the first time. It's an all-ages film that I think anyone can enjoy. The colors are stunning, the music is great, and the beauty of this film is that not much needs to be said. It's a high 8 out of 10. This has been such a good run of great films. Well, the next film I saw was Y2K, and Y2K is about the fear of machines taking over the world on New Year's Eve, 1999. It's another A24 offering, and it very much feels like a film that is targeted at a time and a place. Maybe even a you had to be there crowd. It is full, and I mean full, of references to the 90s. But unlike, say, Stranger Things, a show that offers you that level of nostalgia, this doesn't come with the interesting story. It's very self-aware, and it's not afraid to just run with all of the jokes. But almost none of this worked for me. I am too young to remember any of this, but still enjoyed a lot of the references. I just needed a plot to go with them. It's a bit of a mess. It's a very charming mess, but it's still a mess. And I really don't have anything else to say about this one. It's a high 3 because I felt like my eyes were at odds with each other. They couldn't decide whether to roll back or widen at certain times. If you go into this with the right mindset, I think you'll get something out of it, but it wasn't for me. But The End is the name of the next film, not the video, but don't worry, we're almost there. The End is a musical about a family playing pretend at the end of the world, with stunning salt caves acting as a theatre-style backdrop. This is perhaps the most bizarre film I saw this month. It's got a fantastic cast. It's dark, satirical, expressive, dull, bold, bewildering. I went through a spectrum of emotions watching this. There are moments here that when the song works and the camera swings just right, with the lights bouncing off the salt caves, I got swept up. And then there were moments when I just needed the scene I was watching to be over. The film clocks in at 2.5 hours, and it's a long time for a film that indulges itself. Now I think I'm still landing in the camp that enjoyed this, but I can see this not working for a lot of people. This family are rewriting the end of the human race, selfishly relishing in tradition and burying their trauma in pomp and ceremony. Their past is cursed, and with it they are trying to undo their sins and shape a brighter future. And telling this through music is a very bold choice, and it almost works. There really are some great songs and sequences in this, and I admire the fact that it keeps digging deeper even when you think there isn't more to uncover. But this film did leave me with that feeling that I do feel I'm lightly treading that line between admiration and enjoyment. I'm feeling a low 7 on this one, but mainly because I just appreciated the unique experience this film gave me. Death of a Unicorn is the final new release I'm going to review this month and the final A24 film of the month. And well, A24 are over 3 this month. It's another disappointment, I'm afraid. I can't say I'm surprised, but this falls short in every department really, and especially the CGI. I have to mention that first off. It's just poor and it's distracting. It pulls you right out of the film. And it's another breakdown of class, like The Menu, like Opus. It just feels wholly unoriginal and boring, to be honest with you. What I will say though, is the first 30 to 40 minutes of this film have a solid build-up, the interesting premise hooks you in, but then it just falls flat. Everyone here is typecast in a role that they have done better elsewhere, except maybe Will Poulter. Like Malkovich in Opus, he is the only sort of redeeming part of this film. That and that one joke about time the character Griff makes right near the end of the film. But the film gets lost. Is it a monster movie? Is it a family drama? Is it a comedy? It tries its hand at all 3, but it doesn't really deliver on any, and it really struggles to juggle all 3 at the same time. It ends up descending into mindless gore, and it really outstays its welcome. This one really should have been under 90 minutes. I will say it is the best of the 3 A24 films this month, because it does have some fun with its premise, particularly in the first half, so I'm going to give it a low 4 out of 10, but it still didn't really do that much for me. Okay, I'm going to throw in a bonus film here that was released online on the 28th of March. Baby Invasion is... Okay, so this is a video game within a video game. film, and it features characters that go around Miami mansions murdering the rich while their faces are covered by AI babies. Stay with me. We start with an interview with the game's creator describing to us that she wanted to make a game so real, people couldn't tell the difference. We are then greeted with a computer screen where a masked individual boots up the game Baby Invasion while he's streaming on Twitch. Yes, this movie is accompanied almost in its entirety by a Twitch chat scrolling on the screen, which I will say is quite a unique way to have running commentary that pushes the film's agenda on you whilst you are watching it. We then watch from a first-person perspective as he goes around murdering and torturing rich people. Directed by Harmony Korine, I have only dipped my toes into his filmography so far, but he is an aesthetically focused and provocative filmmaker, perhaps most well known for the film Spring Breakers back in 2012. So this film is not really surprising to those familiar with his work. This one in particular is live action with a smattering of video gameness and AI overlaid on top, and it's accompanied by a high-tempo soundtrack from Burial, and it is a really good soundtrack. But all of this promises something wild, but it's surprisingly boring. It's disturbing. Watching them play mini games whilst torturing people is quite horrific, but it never really feels like that. And that is, of course, deliberate. To make you feel desensitized to it all. To make you realize we are not living a life anymore, we're just playing a game. There is more to this sentiment, but the film bashes you over the head with it pretty early on, and then it gets very repetitive and surprisingly dull. But the first 15 minutes is a hell of a ride. The premise really piqued my interest for this film, and I do think there is something to be found here, but this film leaves you quite conflicted, which is why I'm so shocked that I'm giving it a pretty indifferent rating of 5 out of 10, because I expected to feel more, but I suppose in the end, maybe that's the point. So, 15 movies down, but honestly, and I'm just going to throw this in the end here, the biggest joys of this month came from the small screen. I have to mention 2 TV series that were really quite special this month. Let's start with the obvious one. Severance Series 2. I'm not going to go into the plot or the theories, but I just want to say it was great. Really great. The finale especially is an incredible 80 minutes of TV. In fact, perhaps the greatest 80 minutes of TV we've had in a very long time, with a final sequence that is absolutely gorgeous. It's been a wild but fun ride watching the show the past 10 weeks. Everything it does, from the music, the set design, the twists and turns, and incredible performances and fantastic dialogue, it all comes together in a really satisfying way. I don't have many issues with this season. I've seen discourse about the quote-unquote filler episodes, but I enjoy this show the most when I don't know where it's going. So it never really bothered me. This season is much darker. There is a lot less workday comedy, but to me it's proceeding at a natural pace, and its shift into darker tones makes a lot of sense for the story. There is just so much creativity on display from the cinematography and the editing of this show. It is one of the best looking things on TV. Every decision feels deliberate. It's been a while since I've been this invested in a TV show, and although I'm grateful I now don't have to spend each week hanging off a cliff, I am already missing it. This really is a show that deserves all the hype, all the praise, and to stand tall as some of the best television out there. Series 2 of Severance is a high 9 out of 10. And then we have Adolescence. This show needs no introduction at this point, and I don't have much to add to the heaps of praise it's already received. It's a technical masterpiece. I'm a huge fan of long takes, and they keep you embedded in the action and tension like no other style of filmmaking. Films like Boiling Point and 1917 don't even give you a chance to breathe, and they are all the better for it. And if we're talking about oneers, I have to mention that sequence at the end of episode 4 in series 1 of True Detective. One of my favorite oneers ever. I love this style of filmmaking. This show blew me away with what they were able to achieve. Phenomenal performances, incredible camera work, a heavy but important story. This is just amazing TV. It's easy to gush over how well this was made and forget about the story it tells, but it's worth spending some time thinking about. Episode 3 has been singled out by many as the standout, and that is for good reason. It's a near flawless hour of TV that goes into some dark and difficult discussions that are an unnerving sign of the times. It's not only the best thing I watched in March, but the best thing I've seen this year so far. This is the highest of high 9 out of 10s, and this is, as most people consider it now, essential viewing. Okay, that's a wrap on March. It's been a great month. It's been a weird month. I feel like we ended up in almost every genre you can imagine. TV shows aside, I think I'm going to give my top 4 for this month to Neja 2, Flow, On Falling, and Sister Midnight. These are the 4 films I would definitely recommend above everything else. This video's gone on for long enough, so I'm going to thank you very much for watching.